I'm Zoe, and I'm here to take you through the Resident Evil Requiem trailer and the footage that we saw in the Capcom Spotlight to bring you everything we know for sure about Resident Evil 9 Requiem. I'm going to start with Grace. So we know that Grace Ashcroft is the protagonist of Resident Evil Requiem. Her mother is Alyssa Ashcroft, who's actually already been featured in Resident Evil Outbreak. She's an investigative journalist for Raccoon City, and we know she survived Resident Evil Outbreak because she wrote an article about the disappearances in Dulvey, which relates to the Baker family incident, Jack, Marguerite, etc. from Resident Evil 7. So you can actually find her in Resident Evil 7, and that's dated in 2016. Now, we can do some calculations to figure out when exactly Resident Evil Requiem is taking place. In the trailer, it said that she died 8 years ago, so that must mean that Resident Evil Requiem is set in either 2024 or 2025, because the Baker House incident happened in 2016. This is Alyssa Ashcroft. You can tell here that she's stuck to her brand of being in a red coat because in Resident Evil Outbreak she was also dressed in red. Now, Alyssa, as I've said before, is an investigative journalist. Here you can tell that she's holding a torch in one hand and is investigating something with an exit sign. This looks like it might be the Wrenwood Hotel, where she was found murdered. Obviously, this is quite a big deal to Grace. When she's told about it, she kind of like recoils. Whatever happens in Resident Evil Requiem, it starts with Grace trying to figure out why these recent deaths and disappearances, which we see at the beginning of the trailer, give me 1 second, here, are somehow related to Alyssa's death in the Wrenwood Hotel. Now, all of these different people have died of some kind of unidentified disease. Now, it's not unusual for unidentified diseases to be a big part of Resident Evil. It's Umbrella's bag at this point. So I think the implication is that Alyssa Ashcroft was investigating this unidentified disease when she died 8 years ago, and now this disease has kind of like come back again, which, I mean, Grace is writing a report on it, so it must be pretty big. And somehow the FBI have found out that it's connected to Alyssa's disappearance, which is why Grace is roped in to go and investigate the Wrenwood Hotel and the recent deaths that have happened there. Right here, if you pause the trailer at just the right time, you can actually see that this is the crime scene where Alyssa was found dead. I know that because this is crime scene tape here. These are crime scene evidence markers, so it looks like this is where Alyssa died, so we can assume that this is in the Wrenwood Hotel. This looks like another location in the Wrenwood Hotel. I only say that because there's a bed, and hotels have beds. We do know that the Rhodes Civic Care Centre is another location that's being featured in Resident Evil Requiem, which I will be coming back to later, so it's possible this is potentially a room in the care centre, but this looks like the nicest hospital room I've ever seen, if that's the case. One more thing about Alyssa Ashcroft is that her memories were taken from her when the whole Resident Evil outbreak happened in Raccoon City. So there is the possibility that maybe she returned to Raccoon City or the Wrenwood Hotel to recover her lost memories. There might be something there that she's kind of chased to try and find her lost memories, because that's one hell of a motivation for going back to somewhere where there is so much trauma that any reasonable person would avoid. But Alyssa, being an investigative journalist, I don't think would be scared about going somewhere that other people would avoid. Going back to Grace, we know that she is a technical analyst at the FBI, which means that although she is described as more introverted and easily scared, which relatable, she's also good with guns, which makes her a really good protagonist for a game that's meant to be centered around addictive fear, which is what the developers said in the Capcom Spotlight. The fact that Grace can use guns but is a little bit less on the fieldwork side of the FBI means that although she can use weapons if she comes across them, Grace's parts of the game are going to be much more about sneaking around and avoiding, I think, as well as using her analytical abilities. Now, I am saying Grace's parts of the game there because there was a weird bit in the Spotlight where the developers mentioned Leon. This bit right here is where the developers mentioned thinking about having Leon as the protagonist. He would be, I think, in his 50s in 2025, so he'd be a bit more kind of like Logan, Joel, grizzled era. Now, I think Leon is still in Resident Evil Requiem. Otherwise, why would you mention him? Saying like we thought about making him the protagonist sounds to me like they're going to say he's not the protagonist, but he's a secondary character you can play, or he's an NPC that's going to pop up in the game. It's just kind of, I don't know, strange to hear him mentioned completely out of nowhere. Let me know what you think in the comments, but the way I think this is going to work is that Grace is going to be for the more vulnerable parts of the game where you're being hunted, stalked, kind of don't have any weapons on you. Leon is going to be for more action parts of the game. Because Leon is experienced with guns and dealing with all of this weird shit that happens in Resident Evil, he's going to be much less scared than Grace is, which I think makes him the perfect character for more action type sequences. Moving on to locations, we actually already know one of the key rooms in the Wrenwood Hotel. This door is featured for like half a second in the trailer for Resident Evil Requiem. Now, I can't decide whether this says 201 or 204, but either way, I think this is the hotel room that Alyssa was murdered in. We learned from previews that part of the game that's based in the Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre is reminiscent of the dilapidated ground floor of the old house in Resident Evil 7. The old house was destroyed by a storm before the events of Resident Evil 7, so it's kind of like half ruined but still a domestic space, and I think this indicates that part of the game that's based in the Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre is going to be featuring a lot of like narrow corridors and a lot of being hunted. Speaking of being hunted, this is where the preview started. It started with Grace being tied up in a seemingly like medical facility, being experimented on. She escapes, and then she has to run around trying to stop being killed by the Stalker enemy, who I will go on to shortly. What's important about this one frame in the trailer is that it actually features something being done to Grace that you might have overlooked. Right here we can see that there's a drip in her arm, but I wonder if it's a drip that's in her arm or if she's being infused with something, perhaps the disease that all these people have been dying of, and that whoever put her there is testing this disease or the formula that creates the disease. This part right here appears to be the Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre. Now, to me this looks alarmingly similar to the Raccoon City Police Department. In the Raccoon City Police Department, there was a statue here of a woman. I can't remember what the exact statue was, but the two staircases going up into a kind of mezzanine area and the opening desk, this just feels like the police department to me. I wonder if that's intentional, if somehow like the architecture, I guess the puzzles are going to play a part in it. We do know that puzzles are a big part of the game when you're playing as Grace, and it would kind of make sense because the police department used to be a museum, if another kind of municipal building, like maybe another museum, has been turned into the care centre, and that's why you have so many puzzles in it, because people who design museums just love puzzles apparently. This bit right here shows Grace with something that looks like it's maybe a fuse, which is a classic puzzle ingredient in Resident Evil games. And the rest of this sequence shows Grace walking around the Civic Care Centre. You can tell it's a Civic Care Centre because there are multiple different numbers on the doors, and while yes, this could be the hotel, you can see when the doors open that the furniture inside is definitely hospital furniture. So this is the Rhodes Civic Care Centre. You can see here that there's a basin in the room, this looks like a medicine cabinet, this looks like a bed, and this is very medical in nature. So the scenes that we see from the trailer, I think are definitely part of the Rhodes Civic Care Centre. This place in particular looks like it's a children's ward. So this children's ward has toy dinosaurs, a rocking horse, a terrifying monkey toy of some sort here, trains. I don't know what children play with. Either way, the fact that there's a children's ward in the Rhodes Civic Care Centre, to me, indicates that we're gonna be encountering some real weird stuff. We know from previews that corpses of doctors can be found all around the Civic Care Centre, and to me this looks like the care centre is in a fairly good state. So I wonder whether this is in Raccoon City or whether it's outside of Raccoon City, because if this place has been abandoned for over 8 years, you would assume that there would be dust water damage, all those kinds of things, but this looks very pristine. So I wonder if this is kind of a preamble to the Wrenwood Hotel, where Grace will be investigating her mother's death. Again, with my supposition that the Rhodes Civic Care Centre is more pristine and therefore maybe not in Raccoon City, this shot here clearly shows a member of staff walking through the Civic Care Centre. I am 99% sure this is the place because, again, we have medical screens here and here, clearly some kind of medical equipment either side, and this looks incredibly pristine. Aside from the fact that there's a member of staff, potentially a nurse, walking through it, I think maybe this is the tentacles of whatever kind of disease is happening to those people to kill them has maybe found its way into Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre. Something I also noticed about the care centre is that it looks like it's staffed by sisters rather than nurses. I'm not sure if sisters and nurses are the same thing, but I know that sisters do still have medical expertise, which I just thought was a cool detail. Ironically, it also says here it's a quiet zone, which I can't help but think is a very slight meta nod to the fact that you need to be quiet in the Civic Care Centre so the Stalker doesn't kill you. Okay, now on to the good bit. I'm going to talk about the Stalker enemy. This is the Stalker enemy right here. In the earlier trailer, we only got a glimpse of it coming down from the ceiling, but right here you can see its body in much more detail. I'm going to replay this, but just look at this. You can see that it looks to be almost like, kind of looks like a velociraptor dinosaur kind of pose to me, even though I know it's humanoid. This is the head, these are the arms, these are the legs here. It's obviously a very large creature that's kind of bent over, and you can see a cool detail in the trailer that I'm going to show you right now. Pay close attention to this bit, I will be replaying it. So this bit here, this is our first ever glimpse of the monster. It's clearly coming down from the ceiling, but look, this is a shackle. I know I look excited when I'm saying that, which I shouldn't, but still. This right here is a shackle, which means that I think this monster has broken free of some kind of containment. I am so certain that this is some kind of experiment that's escaped, because otherwise why would you shackle it up? Like, it must have been dangerous enough to keep enclosed somewhere. When I first saw this bit, I did originally think that maybe it was kind of like had a slug as like its bottom half, because you don't see any legs in this very brief bit here. Now if I skip through frame by frame, you can see this is obviously the head, we've got the hair going on here. So the monster itself is humanoid in nature. This is the head, the hair. This looks like it might be a female of some kind, because this looks like maybe breasts that have been smushed down by being experimented on and such, but we do have a way better glimpse of it in the Capcom Spotlight. Just a quick note, this is the same corridor from the trailer that I just showed, so we know that something bad is going to come down from here. This might even be her hair or something, but I would guess this is maybe in the hotel, but the colour scheme does make it look like it's the Rhodes Civic Care Centre, and it would make sense if experiments were kept in a civic care centre, because you'd already have medical equipment nearby to poke them with and such. If I play this bit really slowly, you can see very clearly what its body looks like. So we have it turning around in the hallway, trying to look for Grace. Head, these are its arms, and this is its legs. So it looks like it has a really long neck as well, which is honestly just kind of horrifying. This bit right here is where we see the monster chasing Grace, although chasing might be a generous word for it. So right here, Grace turns around very slowly, and we can see the monster, ooh, that's its face right there, very slowly following Grace. Now, if you look at its poise, arm here, it's kind of hunched over. The hallway is obviously very tall, and yet its face is all the way up here. So whatever it is, it's absolutely huge, and it kind of walks with the kind of like, almost like a T-Rex, it reminds me of, like a lolloping kind of stride. If we watch it again full without me pausing it, you can see that it does have these like really large legs. I say without pausing it and then pause it. These really large legs below its abdomen, and it looks like they're kind of jointed like a werewolf almost. I'm going to flash up a picture of what exactly I mean here, because I don't know how to describe it. But either way, this is the Stalker creature that is going to be in this section of the game. We also know that the Stalker itself has a sophisticated AI behind it. It's attracted to sound, so when you make noise as Grace, whether that's moving things around to climb up upon and stuff like that, the monster will hear you and go towards that sound, but that also means that you can throw things like bottles to distract the monster itself. Interestingly, in the preview on Eurogamer written by Alex Donaldson, he mentioned that this monster has a mechanic that sets it apart from any other Stalker in the series history, but we're not allowed to talk about what it is. He says that this allows you to wrest a little bit of power back from the monster itself, so let me know in the comments what you think this might be. Either way, it's something that the player can use against the monster. We know it's attracted to sound, so it can't be, I mean, maybe it could be that if you set off a really loud flashbang, you can startle it or stun it and make your way past it, kind of similar to how the alien in Alien Isolation was weak when confronted with fire. Something kind of similar to that. But let me know in the comments if you think you know what this might be, if you've got any theories. We also know from the preview that Alex Donaldson wrote that the beast can smash through previously solid walls. This is going to be very similar to when Jack Baker in Resident Evil 7 just straight up walked through that wall when you're playing as Ethan. You didn't expect it to happen, you expected walls to stay as they are, but clearly in Resident Evil Requiem there are going to be scripted events that happen to make you kind of doubt your surroundings and never be entirely safe wherever you are, because if there's a wall, it might not be a wall there a couple of seconds later. Relating to the Stalker enemy, there's something here that I didn't spot before but I think is important. Now, I have subtitles on in this VLC trailer that I'm scrubbing through. I thought that this person was saying, "Stay away from there," when I listened to the trailer, but the subtitles here say, "Stay away from her," and I downloaded this from the Capcom YouTube channel. So perhaps this person, whoever they are, having a bad time clearly, is someone who created the Stalker enemy that's going to be following us throughout the Road Civic Care Centre. I'm pretty sure the Stalker enemy is female, or was originally female, because of the long hair and the fact it looks like you can see breasts in that one bit of the trailer, which sounds creepy, but trust me. So I wonder if this is the person who experimented upon her and created the monster that she became. I don't see any kind of name tag on here, they're not in a medical coat, so it appears that this might not be a doctor, might be the father of the subject, or a businessman who's interested in what was going on. Either way, clearly not having a good time, looks like the creature has gored him. I wouldn't be surprised if immediately after this scene in the trailer, in the real game, they get by the creature themselves, which, I mean, might serve them right, honestly. So, even though we know there's a Stalker enemy, that Stalker isn't the principal antagonist of Resident Evil Requiem. This is the figure that's featured in the trailer that appears to be part of maybe what happened to Grace's mother, but clearly it's some kind of antagonist feature. Now, I've paused it here on this particularly visceral shot to draw your attention to the fact that he does appear to have foam. I say he, they do appear to have foam coming out of their mouth. Now, this to me smells of this person is clearly infected with some form of virus or disease, and unlike the victims that Grace was writing about earlier, has survived through it. Maybe they're looking for a cure, or maybe they want to replicate the strain that they were infected with to infect other people with, to kind of study how it works to find out how they can become stronger. But either way, foam coming out of the mouth and this person seemingly not really minding about it, as well as being up and about and walking, does make me think that this is going to be the prime antagonist of Resident Evil Requiem. I will draw your attention to one thing. Whoever this is, they are in a shirt. And I will just say that Alyssa Ashcroft is also wearing a shirt, but her lips do appear to be a lot slimmer than the antagonist, so they might not be the same person. This shot here also appears to be the same person I'm talking about with the foam in the mouth, because this looks like a raincoat. This is the hood, so whoever it is, we can't really tell anything about this shot, to be completely honest with you, but we know they have dark, short hair, they really like listening to music, and it looks like they are set up in the Wrenwood Hotel. I say that because when this shot pulls out here in just a second, you can see that they are very clearly in a dilapidated room that to me looks like a hotel room. The fact that there is a cuck chair in it is a giveaway, as well as the fact that it does look kind of grand, like that bed that I showed you earlier. So I think the antagonist is set up in the Wrenwood Hotel, which would make sense because that's where Alyssa died. Another thing that we know for sure about Resident Evil Requiem is not only are there great hair physics, but you can switch between first and third person, which they're going to show here real quick. This is really cool. It's seamless and fluid and kind of changes the way that you'll play the game. If you want more intense first person horror, you can be in first person, and if you want to kind of take a step back and not get as freaked out by it, you can play in third person as well. So this is the over the shoulder third person perspective we can see. And I mean, it is still scary, but I personally will be playing in first person. So let me know in the comments below which version you're going to play. There are a couple more things that didn't really fit in their own sections that we know for sure about Resident Evil Requiem. Number one, we know that it's reminiscent of some of the earlier demos of Resident Evil 7. This is something that was mentioned in a lot of the different previews, so claustrophobic first-person horror that probably going to make you scream out loud. We also know that green herbs are back. Excellent, I don't really have much more to say about that, and that there were no weapons in the demo. So for this beginning bit, Grace will be thoroughly without any kind of way to defend herself and will just have to escape from the Stalker. From the preview written for Eurogamer by Alex Donaldson, we also know that it feels like the Resident Evil engine has had a big lighting upgrade, and Resident Evil 9 is essentially Capcom flexing. There's loads of low light areas. I'm just going to show you some of them now. Right here you can see obviously a low light area, very dingy hallway. This is also the care centre. We've got it being lit up by a very gentle red light, emergency lights, I'm pretty sure, because the generator's gone down because something bad has happened. This creature's got loose. And again in this corridor here, low lighting that's further emphasised by the fact that Grace only has a lighter to make her way through the darkness. That's really cool. It's going to make it absolutely terrifying, but I am on board with that, I guess. That is everything we know for sure about Resident Evil Requiem, as well as some small theories by me because I just couldn't resist or help myself. Is there anything in the trailer or the spotlight that you noticed that I didn't mention here? Please do let me know in the comments below, and if you want to see more videos about Resident Evil Requiem, please do like this video and subscribe to Eurogamer, as we do use the like count to determine whether we should make more videos about a certain series. Now, I am going to go and not replay Resident Evil 7 because I've suffered enough playing that game, frankly, already, and I will see you folks next time.
Want to boost your collection and get a selection of great games every month? Well, now you can with Humble Choice. Every month you get a hand-picked mix of awesome PC games, and this month's lineup is bursting at the seams with Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2, Nobody Wants to Die, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Chia, and more. Plus, your Humble Choice membership gets you up to 20% off in the Humble store, including on big new releases, and 5% of your membership goes to charity every month too. All this for just £8.99, and new subscribers can use the code JUNE25 to get their first month for just £6. So if you love discovering great games and doing a little good while you're at it, check out Humble Choice today.